we do a political segment on our show many nights. We bring to our stoner army of followers important issues that they need to know. Tonight we're going to cover Rand Paul and being detained by the Transportation and Safety Administration. And we also talk about the return of the Internet Censorship bills, SOPA and PIPA, and the introduction of Open, another Internet Censorship bill. That is all of that. And we talk politics in Pothead Punditry.
Our nation stands on the brink. Every day brings new federal encroachments that take our freedoms and strangle our will. There comes a time when the silliness must take a back seat to the serious issues of the day. The time is now. It's time to fight back and reclaim the freedom that is rightfully ours. It is time to discuss the serious issues of the day with Stoner Jesus's Pothead Punditry.
Yes, it is Pothead Punditry here on the Stoner Jesus Show. Episode number 22 of our political segment. We do a lot of silly shit here, the Stoner Jesus Show. But there comes a time to put the silliness away and talk about the serious issues of the day. We also take out these segments and put them on YouTube. There's a link to our YouTube channel at stonerjesus.net. You go subscribe and spread the word with all the Pothead Punditry episodes. Share them on Twitter and Facebook. Spread the word. The revolution continues, and it happens here on the Stoner Jesus Show. As promised, first of all, we'll get into the new Internet Censorship bill. You know, there was the blackouts of a lot of websites, and everybody had their little avatars on Twitter and on Facebook, said stop SOPA and all that other shit. But everything's going back to normal because everybody thinks that it's over, but it is not over. Texas Congressman, where's it here? Yeah, the bill sponsor Lamar Smith, who introduced SOPA. He's also the asshole who will not give a hearing to the Ending Federal Marijuana Prohibition Act, introduced in Congress by Ron Paul and Barney Frank. It's H.R. 2306. He's the motherfucker that blocks that. He also said in a statement that there will be no further action until there is a wider agreement on a solution. He said, it is clear that we need to revisit the approach on how best to address the problem of foreign thieves that steal and sell American inventions and products. That's the backdrop for this whole bullshit, is supposedly stopping copyright infringement. Because they think it's so fucking important that they need to be able to shut down entire fucking websites. And they do this anyway. You can Google it and go look it up. In 2011, I believe, they shut down over 73,000 websites. Most of them like hip-hop websites who they say were infringing on copyrights. SOPA is set to be reformulated in February. This is a from activistpost.com. SOPA and PIPA fully alive, and a new bill joins them. PIPA will be revisited, the article continues, with possible amendments in the coming weeks. Case in point, all is still open and possible. Nothing is dead, pulled, or canceled. If that wasn't enough to keep us on our toes, a new, similar bill has surfaced. Excuse me. As an alternative to SOPA-PIPA, Representative Darrell Issa, California Republican, and 24 co-sponsors introduced the Online Protection and Enforcement of Digital Trade, Open, H.R. 3782 on Wednesday during the Internet blackout. From PCWorld.com, quote, Open would give oversight to the International Trade Commission instead of the Justice Department, focuses on foreign-based websites, includes an appeals process, and would apply only to websites that willfully promote copyright violations. The article on Activist Post continues, the bill pretends to only target foreign websites while keeping Americans free to surf and post, but the bill's wording, which can be read at keepthewebopen.com, is wide open to pursue American sites. Just one example, When describing the infringing site, it starts with those, quote, that are accessed through a non-domestic domain name, end quote, but continues in Section 8A, 2, for any site that, quote, conducts business directed to residents of the United States, end quote. It sounds like, in general, copyright holders will be the ones filing complaints to the Commission, but the writing leaves it open for any complainant to file. The ITC will still have the ability to coerce payment processors and ad networks to cease funding and linking the accused in question. Who would determine, or who could determine, what willful infringement means? Also, none of these bills had been decided before the U.S. government took down New Zealand-owned MegaUpload.com during the commotion. You may have read, you go to MegaUpload.com, there's a big-ass thing from the Justice Department that says you cannot access this website. To which Anonymous, the hacker group, that pretty much seems to be able to take down any website at any time, at will, if they want to. Anonymous responded by shutting down the websites of the U.S. Department of Justice, Universal Music, Recording Industry Association of America, the U.S. Copyright Office, Broadcast Music Incorporated, and the Motion Picture Association of America. The Department of Justice's action demonstrates why we don't need SOPA in the first place, points out PC World's Tony Bradley. The government was enforcing a previous anti-piracy law called Pro-IP, signed by Bush in 2008. Open is gaining support from groups like Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Consumer Electronics Association, and more. While it seems admirable that the bill is transparent and open for public comment, most laws of this nature are broad and allow for bigger, non-common sense crackdowns later. Plus, there might be only a couple concessions and the pacifying effects of being heard. One commenter on the bill aptly noted, reasonable belief and credible evidence are too vague and have the appearance of inviting highly subjective interpretation, with the option for the Commission and or the provider to exercise sweeping powers with impunity. Article goes on at activistpost.com. This is it's not over. It's just not over. You can find this one story. We want to talk about, of course, the Rand Paul, the TSA. Yeah, take a drink here. We'll start by the story from Infowars.com, which really trumps all other stories, but the other stories have more detail. TSA directly violated the U.S. Constitution by detaining Senator Rand Paul, by Steve Watson at Infowars.com, and preventing Kentucky Senator Rand Paul from flying to Washington this morning. This was January 23rd. The TSA directly violated the law as written in the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution specifically protects federal lawmakers from being detained while en route to Washington, D.C. from Article 1, Section 6 of the United States Constitution. Quote, the senators and representatives shall in all cases except treason, felony, and breach of the peace be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses and in going and returning from the same. End quote. Rand Paul was traveling from his home in Louisville to attend a session in the Senate today. This is the reason the TSA officials have since put out the talking point in the media that Rand Paul was never officially detained, despite the fact that the senator himself confirmed that he was told to sit in a cubicle and wait without any indication of when he would be allowed to leave. The Senate is back in session at 2 p.m. and the votes are scheduled for 4:30. Senator Paul was allowed to board a second flight after a separate screening by TSA agents. However, it remains to be seen whether he will make it to the Capitol in time. I don't know if they, I would imagine they did an update on that. And we'll go down and look for it. Let's see. Just go to the next one. Ron Paul slams out of control police state after Rand Paul detained by the TSA. GOP presidential candidate Ron Paul issued the following statement on his campaign website this afternoon. This is also January 23rd. Following his son Rand's treatment at the hands of the TSA in Nashville. Statement said, the police state in this country is growing out of control. One of the ultimate embodiments of this is the TSA that gropes and grabs our children, our seniors, and our loved ones and neighbors with disabilities. The TSA does all of this while doing nothing to keep us safe. That is why in my plan to restore America, In addition to cutting $1 trillion in federal spending in 1 year, we will eliminate the TSA. We must restore the freedom and respect for liberty that once made American the greatest nation in human history. I am deeply committed to doing that as President of the United States. And that was from Ron Paul. The part about groping and grabbing children and seniors and loved ones, Google that shit. They strip search old women. They violated Miss America at the Dallas airport. There's videos on YouTube of them patting down children and fondling basically children in fucking full public view, like as young as like 5 or 6 years old. And there's also stories of them taking them in private and doing worse things. Like I said, Google it. We continue with the Rand Paul story. Let me get one more. Let's see, that's the original one. State. White House, of course, sided with the TSA. That White House Press Secretary Jay Carney said intrusive pat-downs were essential to ensure that air travel is safe. So that's the thing. They can do anything in the name of safety. It just doesn't matter. They can do whatever the fuck they want, whenever they want to do it. Anyway, last story tonight. On Pothead Pundit, episode 22. Did the TSA target Rand Paul for an intrusive pat-down? Following Rand Paul's incident earlier today, again, this was also on the 23rd, with the TSA, the corporate media spun the story to say Paul was not detained. Jay Carney, the White House spokesman, as we just said, set the tone when he insisted Paul, or rather the passenger in question, was not detained. He said, let's just be clear, the passenger was not detained. He was escorted out of the area by local law enforcement. If you were told you can't leave, does that count as detention? Paul asked in response to Carney's assertion. He continued, I tried to leave the cubicle to speak to one of the TSA people, and I was barked at. Don't leave the cubicle. So that, to me, sounds like I'm being asked not to leave the cubicle. It sounds a little bit like I'm being detained. During an interview following the incident, Paul said the TSA alarms are often set off as part of a random process in an effort to be unpredictable. Infowars.com, however, has confirmed from sources that the TSA often targets certain individuals for intrusive pat-downs and uses alarms to initiate the process. It appears Rand Paul was deliberately targeted, although this cannot be definitely confirmed. Paul questioned the TSA after a 6-year-old Bowling Green girl on a trip with her parents in April of last year was patted down at an airport in New Orleans. The parents videotaped the incident and uploaded it to YouTube, where it went viral and created a public relations headache for the agency. Paul had called TSA boss John Pistoli clueless during a hearing held by the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee in June of 2011. As I said on Twitter, big ups to Senator Rand Paul for not letting them grab your junk. And they violated the Constitution. They told him he couldn't leave. That's detainment. If he wasn't detained, he could have been free to go where he wanted to, talk to who he wanted to. He's a fucking U.S. Senator, for God's sakes. There's 100 of them. They knew exactly who the fuck he was. He goes to Nashville Airport all the time. He's a senator from Kentucky. He's the son of a presidential candidate. They knew damn fucking well who he was. And that's why he was targeted. Go look up the YouTube video of Rand Paul questioning the TSA guy. He just rips him a new one. Live on C-SPAN and on the in the Senate committee room. Ron Paul. Go Google Ron Paul being groped by the TSA. They targeted him too. He's been a critic of them for a long time. The notion that we need to strip search people and put them through radioactive fucking microwaves so we can see their insides. You know, if you ever go if you go with someone else to an X-ray room, they give you a lead vest, and I've been given lead, and they told me basically to put it in front of my crotch because that shit will kill you. But they run people through those machines and look at their insides. They're not protected by anything, but it's all in safety. It's all in the name of safety. They can do anything in the name of safety. They say you're a terrorist, they can kick in your door and arrest you. And when the camera's pointing in their face, they'll say, oh, it's in the name of safety. They're a terrorist sympathizer. They watched Al-Qaeda documentaries on the History Channel. We have their DVR records. That's what it's coming to. If you don't believe me, go look it up. That's all I ask. Go do your research yourself. Google. You can find anything on Google. Anything. That if you've ever seen that show, Dog the Bounty Hunter, those motherfuckers are on Google all the time. Google this. Google Maps. Google Street View. Motherfucking website. You can find anything you want. Anyway, that's Pothead Punditry episode number 22. We bring the stoner community important information, and we put it on YouTube so it can be shared with a wider audience. So go share that shit. Link at stonerjesus.net. This is podcast number 106.